third basic of a story character is story characters need to be heard. So quick quiz, test your memory, as Maxine says. The third basic of the storytelling is that story characters need to be
heard.
Heard. Exactly. Story characters need to be heard. And the problem is that a lot of people, they don't do that in their stories. Because they don't use that in their stories, the stories remain flat. They remain understanding. They aren't really engaging. It's like there's a missing part of it. If you heard stories like that, or it just doesn't quite engage, it doesn't quite, Pat knows what I'm talking about. Exactly. This doesn't quite engage, doesn't quite pull you in. And that's because there's nothing being heard, nothing going on. It's that missing part. If you do have a story and things are being heard and there is dialogue going on, then all of a sudden something happens. Something special happens. Drives things forward, that moves the story, that gets people involved, that gets everything interesting, that builds everything up to that climax. We'll talk about what that is in a little bit. But third basic, story characters need to be heard. And it's all about dialogue. All about dialogue. There are different types of dialogue. One type of dialogue, probably the dialogue you think of most, is dialogue between two people. Have you heard that before? Two people talking? Some of you have, others aren't paying attention. Dialogue, back and forth. When you think of dialogue, you think of two people talking. Somebody says something, somebody else says something, and things go back and forth. And there's something that happens when you have that dialogue. Someone talks and somebody else answers, and something very special that happens. And for most people, they think of dialogue only existing between those situations. We got somebody talking and somebody responding. And therefore, you think, Tim, okay, fine, but I don't have that going on. I don't have two people in my story. My story is just about me, and I'm talking about what I'm thinking, and there's no dialogue going on there at all. Actually, though, there is dialogue. And that dialogue is internal dialogue. And you saw a great example of internal dialogue today, Ken's speech. And all it is very simple. You simply start sharing with the audience what's going on in your mind. I thought, what's on the tape? And should I play it? What if it's something horrible? What am I going to do? Dialogue. There's dialogue, there's always back and forth. Now you might be thinking, Tim, okay, dialogue, fine. But there's nobody on the other side. It's just you talking to yourself. It's crazy. Dialogue has to involve somebody else, right? Here's the thing to keep in mind. Even though you think nobody else is answering, yes, somebody is answering. The audience is answering. The other thing to think about is the audience always answers. Every question, every statement, every dialogue you have, the audience answers that. So as you're doing dialogue back and forth, we'll give a little bit of time for the audience to answer. So when Ken's doing things, I don't know what's on the tape. The audience is thinking, we don't know either. I don't know either. I wonder something horrible. I hope he doesn't play it. These thoughts go through your mind like that. There is this conversation going on. There is dialogue going on if you let it happen. And then finally, there's simple dialogue where, as Ken did very well, you simply say to the audience, have you ever been in that situation? Have you ever thought that? Just remember, since the audience always answers, you've got to give them time to answer. Have you ever had a situation where somebody asks you a question like, hey, you know, what do you think if we go out to the movies? Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Why don't we go to the movies now? And you're thinking, give me a chance to answer. Ever felt like that? Your audience feels like that. Dialogue is so incredibly important. Now, there's something magical that happens in dialogue. Let me get to it just a little bit. For now, just imagine looking out a window, just like any one of these windows. You're looking out the window. And last time talked about a guy called Ted and a guy called Bobby. And you know that Ted is, my next door neighbor, and Bobby is my best friend. Ted's, he's a tall guy, tall blonde-haired guy. Bobby's a taller, red-haired guy. That's what we talked about last time. And you know that they have a way of getting into it. So the question was, how long do you look out the window? And Stefani answered very well, a little longer, not piccolo, but maybe a little bit more. A little more grandiose. Okay, you look out the window a little bit. But if nothing happens, you still look out the window? Nothing's going on in the story, do you still look out the window, see maybe something will happen? You give up after a while. What if this? What if you saw Ted and Bobby, and Ted was talking? No, Bobby was talking. Bobby was saying to Ted, next door neighbor, Bobby was saying, "Hey, Ted, you got to knock down that noise." Yeah. I've been talking to Tim. He says, "You just make way too much noise at night." Hey, Bobby, don't tell me about the noise, huh? Because it's none of your bloody business anyway. I'll play stuff as loud as I want. In fact, you come by tonight over to Tim's house, you're going to hear something really loud. Oh, yeah? Really? Is that the way you're going to be about it, Tim? We'll just call the cops on you. How about that? We'll call the cops. They'll come down, break down your door, knock you down. Heck, maybe I'll knock you down, buddy. You try anything like that. Okay, you just try it. You just try it. But you just come over there, buddy. You just come over anytime I'm ready for it. I'm You get a little more interested. This could be it. They're going to kill each other out there. I don't know what. Dialogue. All happens to the magic of dialogue. And the thing that happens to the magic of dialogue is dialogue builds the conflict. Dialogue builds the conflict. See, if you don't have dialogue, things going back and forth, and you don't build up the conflict, nothing happens in your stories. Have you heard stories like that? No conflict? Or no dialogue? They said, oh, he said that he was upset, and she said that she was upset, and they got really mad at each other, and then something happened, and and you're like, wake me when this is over. You ever told stories like that? Not Pat, but other people, have you ever told stories like that? Dialogue. Dialogue is so important and so powerful. If you put dialogue in your stories, it'll make a world of difference. The thing is that most people who tell their stories don't put dialogue in, maybe because it's too much bother or too much work. There's something about it. But even though they maybe have, they'll describe the characters a little bit, their scene. They'll make sure, maybe a little bit of background. Most speakers won't use dialogue. And using dialogue is what separates a good speaker from a great speaker. Dialogue builds the conflict. Dialogue makes the story. Without dialogue, there isn't any story. You're looking out the window to see what happens, but nothing's going on. With dialogue, a lot of things are going on. So, the third basic is story characters need to be heard. Quick review. Third basic is story characters need to be
heard.